Steal the ground's friction to make everything slide around. Take away sound to avoid being detected by skulk sensors. Slowly descend ravines in a giant bubble. And even enter shooting mode to blast things from afar. This is soft and wet. It's one of the 11 stands that I've finished for the Roundabout mod so far. But before I get into all that, here's a quick progress update. Hi everyone, it's been a while. Ever since I made that trailer for the mod, my focus has been exclusively on the mod itself. So if you've only been following the mod through the YouTube channel, there are a lot of new features that you might not be aware of. So I would like to start putting out showcase videos like this one to show off what I've been making during all this time. The mod has been making progress at a meteoric pace, and I would love to share more about what I plan to make soon. But let's get right into the soft and wet showcase. In JoJolian, soft and wet has a lot of abilities, so I tried my best to translate all of them into Minecraft. The biggest one is soft and wet's ability to take things away. So as you can see when I press the Z button, this big menu appears, and whatever I mouse over becomes what my bubbles can steal. And altogether these options kind of transform the way the game is played. With eyesight selected, you can momentarily make mobs go blind and run right past them. Stealing friction makes things slide around uncontrollably. You can either target a specific mob or take friction off of the ground so that even you start sliding. This goes kind of crazy in the Nether, or wherever else there's a giant pitfall you can push mobs down. You can also use this momentary boost of speed as an opportunity to gain distance while you eat food, or charge up a barrage. The sound bubble mutes all sounds until it pops and releases all of them at once. As I showed at the beginning of the video, it's particularly useful in ancient cities because the sounds that are released at the end don't even set off skulk sensors or anything. You can use this ability to silently sneak into another player's base. To open doors to loot chests, nothing makes a sound. Not even a creeper. The potion bubble lets you take potion effects off of mobs and apply them to other mobs. You can also pop the potion bubble to splash the effects on yourself. So if you're super annoyed by friends using golden apples in PvP, well, that won't be such a problem anymore. And if your pets encounter a witch, that won't be a problem either. The oxygen bubble has two main functions. The first is to steal breath from mobs and deliver air to you while you're underwater. It can be aimed at the sky or at magma blocks. But the oxygen bubble actually doubles as a fire bubble. Much like in part 8, you can actually capture flames, and that means taking fire off of mobs and putting it onto other mobs. You can even clear fire off of the ground. This has a lot of unspoken combat implications. The item bubble lets you grab items from afar, so if you're ever mining and an ore drops to the bottom of a ravine, you can immediately just grab it. The fluid bubble lets you bottle up water, blood, gasoline, or lava, so you can just freely move around liquids. This has some pretty crazy implications for survival mode, and is just a very fun building tool in general. And then last but not least is the mob bubble. You can move around some smaller mobs. And one little thing you can do with this one is you can actually use it on a pig and then equip a saddle on the pig, and then you can kind of just fly it around. It does have a time limit, but it's pretty fun to use because you can redirect it in the air. So yeah, that's the Plunder ability. As you can see, it's not short on use cases. If you have the imagination, there are just so many ways you can use this ability alone, and it's just going to change the way you play Minecraft. But we're not quite done with Plunder, because there's actually one more aspect to it. That being, you don't even have to shoot just one bubble at a time. You can actually create a bubble cluster. These clusters have an independent key that you can press to guide them along in any direction. So basically you can do everything on a higher scale. Like take for instance capturing liquids. You can stand inside of water or lava and move a huge amount of it around at once. You can create a wall of bubbles that inflict blindness. So you're by no means short on options here. Before we get to some of the more hype abilities of the stand, let's take a minute to talk about movement. So we have our dash like any other stand, and it can also grab ledges, giving you a nice little boost. It's also the third stand to receive a fall brace ability. This will absorb the damage and slide you forward a bit. Individually, these abilities can be quite useful, but when you start using them together, it just feels very fun to move around the world. And I was aiming to make it feel like in JoJo, where movement isn't overpowered, so I hope you all enjoy. Soft and Wet also has the ability to create something called bubble scaffolding. It basically builds a little walkway out of bubbles, and it continues to build in the direction that you're facing. This is something that Josuke does to give Yasuo a boost, and like in the manga, you can climb these bubbles to get higher. You can't build directly on them, and they will pop eventually. You also have the option to spawn an encasement bubble. Basically, you can equip it on yourself to jump really high, and your movement becomes slow and floaty. You become immune to fall damage, and potentially resist things like Ozone Baby and Green Day in the future. But if you swing a sharp object like a sword or take damage, your bubble will pop. So be careful if you're descending down a ravine to not get shot by a skeleton. You can pass these bubbles to other players, and they can optionally equip them. You can also give these to your livestock as a protective layer. So when more heinous area of effect abilities drop in the mod, your livestock will be protected, and won't catch any strays. Alright, now let's talk about the hype abilities the stand has. If you press V, you can freely switch between regular mode and shooting mode. Shooting mode is how you use Soft and Wet's explosive bubbles. So if you left click, you can shoot a few of them at a time, and that causes the bottom bar to fill to the top. The bottom bar is the heat bar, and you can't exceed a certain amount of heat. You can shoot again once the heat starts lowering and passes a certain threshold, but you're incentivized to wait until it falls all the way down. Because if you use shooting mode as efficiently as possible, the meter on top will fill faster. And this meter is actually your go beyond ability. So once it reaches the top, you will enter this mode called explosive spin mode. You have infinite shots in this mode, and everything you shoot travels faster. You might notice the mobs I look at become highlighted in this mode, and that means they're going to be my go beyond target. Pressing Z launches go beyond. It travels slowly until it makes contact, and then bang, it just explodes on the mob. It's a ton of damage, a ton of knockback, it inflicts a very powerful bleed, which prevents people from regenning with food in PvP, and it's just all around a very powerful attack. In the manga, 2 hits kinda just downed Toru, and that's how much it takes to kill someone in PvP as well. Go Beyond travels through blocks, it travels through logic, meaning it will bypass certain stand abilities, it bypasses their guard, and it even keeps moving through time stop. So the only way to deal with it is to run away, because if it doesn't hit its target for long enough, it'll just disappear. Overall, I was heavily inspired with the chaos meters in Shadow the Hedgehog, and how when they filled up you had infinite ammo for a while. So you were kinda weighing when to use the ammo, and when to use your ultimate attack, which would deplete the meter. So that's explosive spin mode, but there's a couple other things that are unique to shooting mode. For starters, your barrage is transformed during shooting mode. It fires off a ton of explosive bubbles that are not counted towards either meter. These bubbles travel through the ground and seek out your last target. Then they pop up from the ground and shoot out normally. So you kinda get these like landmines to work with. You also get one of the stand's most interesting abilities, that being the explosive item bubble. This bubble is fundamentally similar to the throw ability that Star Platinum and the World have in the mods, with the key difference being you can actually push these bubbles a distance away from you and pop them to launch items at interesting angles. So not only can you trick shot enemies from behind and spray knife bundles in the air, but it's also fundamentally a building tool. If you're going mining, you could place torches far away. You can also place multiple blocks at once and create a temporary wall. And above all else, the one thing that separates this from the throw ability is just the massive amount of angles you have to place blocks down at. So it's really useful for building. It also carries over all the fun interactions that throw was given, like putting a disc into a jukebox. If you're holding a water bucket or water bottle, you can empty it out to create a temporary barrier around yourself for a second, and all projectiles that come at you in that second will turn into these explosive item bubbles, which you can then use to return the attacks to the sender. So that's all of Soft and Wet's main abilities, so we should talk about the left and right click inputs that are very basic to Soft and Wet. It has a 3-hit combo, which has a pretty good attack power, a guard with a good defense stat, a barrage which does pretty good damage, and finally its sneak attack, which is a unique move. You can charge it up and release it for a high damage kick, but if you charge it all the way, you can trade off some of that damage for a secondary effect. It encases mobs in a giant bubble and makes them float helplessly. Other players must use a sharp object to pop their way out. Soft and Wet has a pretty big variety of skins, and its secret skin, which you can unlock by eating a new Lokaka next to a cat, is Killer Queen from Part 8, and it fires off little sheer heart attack particles instead of the star particles from its shoulder when you use Go Beyond. This is to insinuate that Go Beyond is actually the explosive power of Killer Queen when you're using this skin. So that's 10 straight minutes of me talking about what you can do with Soft and Wet. So if you have 10 minutes worth of options that you can use at any time, just imagine how creative you can be with this stand in survival mode. I knew going into making this stand that it would take a long time because Josuke just has so many abilities throughout Part 8, and I tried my best to capture all of them. And on top of that, I had to make sure that everything was balanced and fun. But I would say I'm pretty satisfied with how Soft and Wet turned out, and I hope you enjoy this stand. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the mod and the future of this channel. Almost an entire year has passed since that initial trailer. And since then, I haven't showed off a lot of the things I've been making. So I would like to start now. I would also like to put out there all of my plans for the future of the mod, and answer the questions that have been popping up in the comments sections. So expect a lot more YouTube videos. I really need this mod to get more exposure, because more exposure means that more people will join the dev team or just help contribute little things to the mod. So I would greatly appreciate any like or comment that you'd leave on these videos. And subscribing would go a long way as well. So for now, that's all I want to talk about on this video. I hope you enjoyed the showcase, and take care.